All right, camera's on, mic's on, no more profanity. All right. Okay, there's your cells so far, yeah? Good. And we've already labelled and added the mitochondria. I've not added the rest of the labels just to save time. So I want you to think about the mitochondria. Now that's plural, singular is mitochondrion, as being these involved with chemical energy conversion. All right? They simply convert chemical energy from one form to another. So they take the energy stored in food molecules like glucose, and they take the energy out of those high energy food molecules and they transfer it to energy stored within ATP. That would be a really good thing to write down. Okay? They take the chemical energy in these high energy food molecules like glucose and they transfer that chemical energy into energy stored within ATP. Now, the process by which they do that is called cellular respiration. All right? The process where they do that is called cellular respiration. Okay, so mitochondria then are in nearly all eukaryotic cells. So you're not going to find them in bacteria, you're not going to find them in archaea, but virtually all eukaryotic cells have them. I'll tell you a good example of a cell that doesn't are your red blood cells. Mammalian red blood cells don't have mitochondria, but practically all eukaryotic cells do. So, which kingdoms of organisms have mitochondria?
Animal,
Good.
plant, fungus.
Protista.
Good. Animals, plants, fungi, and the protists. Good. They all have mitochondria. And the mitochondrion, singular, has two membranes. There's an inner membrane and an outer membrane. Now, the outer membrane isn't folded, but the inner membrane is very highly folded. And it's these folds that we call cristae. So why is that inner membrane folded? Increase the surface area. So why does it need to increase? What, I guess, effect? What's the effect of increasing the surface area?
More opportunity to perform.
It is more opportunity to make energy, but in a more sort of general way or more... Sorry? You can, right, actually, you can make the overall organelle smaller and pack more into it, good. But there is more surface area to pack enzymes, so you're going to get more chemical reactions occur per unit volume. Okay? Increased surface area, so there's more chemical reactions going on in a small space. Okay. Is everybody okay with why it's folded then, yeah? And embedded on and within that inner membrane are many, many, many different enzymes and different proteins, all busily carrying out a whole series of complex chemical reactions. And what's the overall process that's going on in a mitochondria?
Cellular respiration.
Good, cellular respiration. Now, cellular respiration is itself quite complicated. Not all steps of it occur within the mitochondria. There's some of them that occur out in the cytoplasm, okay? But majority in the mitochondria. All right. So we've got two compartments then as a result of having an outer and an inner membrane. We've got this intermembrane space, and then we've got on the very inside the mitochondrial matrix. So that creates separation, spatial separation. Different reactions occur in those different areas. And what's one thing you might find in this mitochondrial matrix? Keanu Reeves kicking some booty, right? Seen those movie, The Matrix? No? Yeah? Really? Never seen any Matrix movies?
Yes.
You must have.
I just remember the part at the beginning where they strap you down and put that weird robotic thing in his belly button. That's all
Yeah, and he gets a choice of 2 pills, right? Green and red.
Yeah.
All right.
It scared me.
Hopefully now you won't forget the mitochondrial matrix.
And that's it, like same thing.
Just picture Keanu Reeves inside. And he's trying to get out. All right. So the mitochondria then. All right, they're the sites of cellular respiration, most of the stages anyway. Some of them occur out in the cytoplasm. What I want you to do now is write the overall, general, summary equation for cellular respiration. Write it down in your notes nicely from memory. I'll give it to you in a moment, but I want you to try and pull it up from memory. Try and think about it. Try and think about what it is. It's a chemical reaction, so you've got substrates on the left side of the arrow, products on the right side. Don't look at what your husband's writing. Anybody got it? Anybody like, yep, got this down, know it. What is it?
Takes chemical energy from food and transfers it to storage units or storage cells in ATP.
It does. But what's the, like, if you had to write the chemical equation down, what would that look like?
3-phosphate. Like, isn't it like chemical? Like, isn't the buildup of like ATP? Phosphate.
ATP's involved. Anyone? What you got?
C6H12O6 to 6H2O plus C6.
What's the first one?
C6H12O6.
C6H12O6. Good. There's your glucose. Let's write it out as a word.
I know you get
Plus.
carbon out of it, but I don't.
Gets combined with
Is it oxygen?
oxygen. Good.
Makes way more
Oxygen.
sense to me now that you say that. Where's the H go?
This is one I just want you to remember verbatim. Don't forget it.
And then it comes out with carbon dioxide and water.
Okay.
Water.
So, carbon dioxide, CO2 plus H2O. Okay. Now there's a little bit more I'm going to add to it. And we've got to balance this. Don't you remember you balanced this one when we looked at balancing chemical equations? Yeah. Anybody remember how to balance it? Get it balanced?
You usually change like the coefficients. The number in front of the.
There's a 6 in front of what?
The CO2, because you have 6 carbons on the left.
So you can balance it. You can balance it from scratch, right? Hopefully that's a skill you've got.
You can put a 6 in front of the H too if you wanted.
If I wanted to, yeah.
I'm not going to make you do anything. I feel bad. I feel like I offended you earlier.
What else?
And then you have to
You
balance
haven't offended
your
me at all.
oxygens on
Okay,
the
good.
left. Yeah, then you need like 4.
So now on one side you have 8 oxygen, on the other side you have.
Go on, come on, you can do it.
Add a number for the oxygen. You gotta add a number.
Is it a 7?
I don't know. I do not know. 12.
Well,
And
it was
then
18, so
12 and
it's
6.
7.
It's 18. And
What is it?
6.
6. If you hate balancing chemical equations, 666 is a sign of the... That's it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm on one today.
All right. I'm going to erase this word equation. All right. I'm going to erase that. Now, I'm going to add in the ATPs. Now, ATP molecules are produced as a result of cellular respiration. So I want you to think about this. The energy is stored in glucose, and there's lots of it. You know that because there's a lot of carbon-hydrogen bonds. That energy is stripped out of glucose, and it's transferred into ATP. And ATP stands for what?
What is it?
Adenosine Triphosphate.
Adenosine triphosphate. Good. Adenosine triphosphate. ATP.
Say that.
All right. You were?
No.
Think about this as kind of like a molecular battery, right? As ATP, it's like fully charged, lots of energy stored within it. All right? That energy can be given up, used within the cell. For example, if the cell is a muscle cell and that muscle cell needs to get shorter, right? That takes energy. energy and ATP is used for that. If you're one of those motor proteins dragging a vesicle along a microtubule, that takes energy. ATP energy is used for that. All right? So when ATP gives up some of its energy, what happens is there are 3 phosphates. That's what the three phosphates. One of the phosphates breaks off. That's what happens. When that phosphate breaks off, bzz, releases a bunch of energy. Okay? So when an adenosine triphosphate breaks down, one of the phosphates break off. What have we got left? What's left? ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Okay? And a what?
An inorganic phosphate plus energy.
A phosphate, good. Okay? Now, so ATP might have been converted to ADP in the phosphate somewhere else in the cell, not the mitochondria, somewhere else, right? If it's energizing one of those motor proteins, it's going to be broken down there. The energy is going to be released to do the work. Then we've got ADP and phosphate. Now, there's a little bit of energy in ADP, but not as much. So these then diffuse back to the mitochondria, where they're recharged, rejoined to form this. And this goes out and does its work. The energy gets given up, makes ADP and phosphate, and it goes back to mitochondria to get recharged. So everybody see how that works? It's just a cyclical process. So cellular respiration in a nutshell, let's take the energy from glucose, let's put it in ATP, let's use that energy to do work, make ADP and phosphate, go back to mitochondria, get recharged. Good? Now, I'm not going to put any numbers in here because each glucose molecule can yield a lot more than 1 ATP. And the number kind of varies a little bit. The average number given is 36, all right? But it varies a little bit. We'll talk about cellular respiration later, and I'll give you some more details then. All right? Is everybody okay with that as a process, yeah? Good? Okay. So, if we were to draw a mitochondria, or mitochondrion, okay, what kind of molecules do we have diffusing into the mitochondria? What are making a, what's going in? Phosphates are, yeah. What else? Fuel molecules like glucose. And a whole bunch of other fuel molecules. It's not just glucose. Glucose is the major one, but a whole bunch of other fuel molecules. All right, they're going to diffuse in. Good. What else? Good. Oxygen.
Water.
Where does the oxygen come from? Exactly. It's why you breathe, literally, to burn glucose. Okay? All right. So there's some of the main things going in. What's going to come out? What are some of the major things exiting? Good. Carbon dioxide. Where does that carbon dioxide go? Out. You breathe a lot of it out. Okay, good. Isn't it? So think about this. Glucose. You eat a French fry. That's got starch. Starch is a polymer of glucose. The carbon dioxide you breathe out has a carbon atom that was once part of that potato. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then if you go, if anybody got a garden at home?
Yeah.
All right, do this. This would be kind of cool. So anybody grow tomatoes? All right, awesome. So here's what I want you to do. Eat a tomato, and over the next 12 hours go and breathe on your tomato plant. It's going to be taking up carbon dioxide that you exhale. It's going to have carbons in that were once in that tomato. So it's retaking them up.
So it's
Isn't
like
that kind of cool?
recycling
Yeah.
and a very
Cannibalistic plants, really.
Oh my gosh, you're
Right.
sick.
Oh, I heard something much worse.
All right. What else is going to come out?
Water.
Or water even, yeah. And what else?
A phosphate.
ATP. Oh, are we missing something going in? ADP, good. Okay? And all that's happening is we're taking the energy in the food molecules and shuttling that energy into ATP in a very efficient way. Now, there's byproducts, right? Not all of the energy in the glucose makes its way into the ATP. An awful lot of it is released as what? In what form?
Heat.
Heat. Exactly it. Not all the energy in in glucose makes its way to ATP. A whole bunch of it is released as heat. That's why you're warm. That's where the heat for your body temperature comes from. You're literally burning glucose. Some of that energy is shuttled to ATP. A whole bunch of it is lost as heat.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there something to say about like maybe how much someone eats versus how toasty they are in temperature?
So your body regulates internal temperature, keeps it within very strict limits.
There are people though, you've talked to a few people, I'm sure, and like there's some people more warmer than others.
Yeah, maybe. Their core temperature doesn't vary very much.
Okay.
I don't think.
Never mind.
Core temperature, that is. Temperature of extremities varies quite a lot, believe it or not. All right. Okay. So when you're really cold, you do a whole bunch of things to try and reduce heat loss and increase your core body temperature. One of them is to kind of extract chemical energy, literally burn it. It's an expensive way to generate heat, but you sometimes do that. It's one reason why you shiver. Make muscles contract, generate some heat.
Nice.
Okay.
It's kind of cool.
So how many mitochondria are like typically in a cell?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm going to answer it in just a moment. All right, so typically a few to many per cell. All right, it's a good question. Now, red blood cells don't have any. A liver cell might have up to 2,000 of them in a cell. So what kind of cells do you think are going to have a very few? And what kind of cells do you think are going to have an awful lot, given what mitochondria do?
The ones that take a lot of glucose in are going to have a lot more.
Okay.
So
Like liver.
Okay, but liver cells are very metabolically active. They are. Your liver is a very metabolically active organ. In fact, so metabolically active, the blood leaving your liver is about 1 degree Celsius warmer than the blood entering as a result of all that metabolic activity. All right? So in general, what kind of cells are going to have a lot then? Metabolically active cells. Cells that are going to need to produce a lot of ATP. Muscles. What kind of muscle do you think might have an awful lot? Heart muscle. Yep. Remember, your heart doesn't stop beating, does it? From before you're born to literally the day you're dying. It beats every single day of your life. It doesn't stop. Okay? And sometimes you place huge demands on your heart. So there's a lot of mitochondria there. Muscle cells generally, liver cells. Cells that have a very high ATP demand, metabolically active. All right? So what kind of cells do you think don't have very many?
Skin.
Maybe skin cells. Yep, skin cells that are not that metabolically active, or very tiny cells. Okay? Because there's not much room for it. But red blood cells are one of those kind of interesting examples. They have no nucleus or mitochondria. And it's simply because they have one function: pack in as much hemoglobin as possible to carry oxygen. Okay. All right. So muscle cells can have hundreds to thousands, so can liver cells. Now, do you think the number of mitochondria in a cell is relatively static?
what do you mean, what's relatively static mean?
Relatively unchanging. Do you think it stays reasonably constant?
Oh.
Was it, you said muscle cells?
In any cell, do you think the number of mitochondria stays relatively constant?
No.
Heck no. Depends on what cell it is. So let's just say you're a couch potato and you've been a couch potato for a long time. In your muscle cells, you may not have very many mitochondria, and they might be small. You don't need many of them, right? And then let's say you suddenly decide to work out. You place a demand. Then your body says, oh, we've got to get geared up. Mitochondria are going to start to grow, increase in size, and increase in number. They themselves divide and increase to meet the increasing demands. That's one of the impacts of exercise. It doesn't happen quickly. It takes a while. But that's what part of conditioning is, right? You get in better shape. One of those things is more mitochondria.
So is that like, so when you say conditioning, eventually your body kind of adjusts to the level. So like when people say like if you start to run a mile and eventually your body gets used to it, is it because your body now can produce what you require of it to do that?
Yep. As long as you continually, keep running that mile, 1 mile is going to have a little bit of an impact. You keep doing it, your body says, all right, I've got to respond. Just like alcohol, right? You drink alcohol, your body's got to be able to deal with that. Your body is super dynamic.
And that's why with exercise you gotta keep changing it up because
To some degree, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, it's intriguing.
No, it should intrigue you. That's good. All right. Okay. Good. Obviously, more mitochondria. If you're going to continue to use them at full whack, you've got to eat more, right? It's why those super athletes eat a lot of calories. I don't know how much Michael Phelps was eating when he was competing in the Olympics. Wasn't it like 6,000 calories a day or something? All right. It was an enormous amount. A colleague here, sorry?
How much?
I thought he was like in excess of 6,000 calories a day.
Well, this is the thing. They said that, I watched him show, they said that Michael Phelps didn't produce a lot of lactic acid, and so they were questioning whether or not he should even be allowed to because, he doesn't get fatigued at the same level other athletes do.
Well, that's part of why he's good.
That's not fair, because that's just, genetics. It's not like he's cheating in any way,
So, if you burn a lot of calories, you've got to consume a lot of calories. I had a friend who did a through hike in the Grand Canyon. He was hiking many miles a day with a pack and spending lots of amounts of energy, right? Now, he lost a lot of weight on this trip. Yep, he started off a little on the chubby side, but in great shape, and ended it skinny as a rake. And I think he was consuming between 3,000 and 5,000 calories a day. All right? No, he had food stashes, food caches. You've got to carry food for 3 to 5 days.
And wait, he was hiking what?
He did a through hike. He started at one end of the Grand Canyon, spent 45 days, maybe 60 days, I can't remember, and hiked 600 miles to the other end. Below the rim.
I don't do anything.
You don't?
In the canyon.
Sorry?
In the canyon.
Yes.
Like
Down in the ditch.
Down below.
Yeah.
So like people train for like doing the Appalachian Trail,
Yeah.
where it starts down in Georgia,
Yeah.
goes all the way to Maine.
I imagine he massively increased the number of mitochondria in his cells. Right?
I can do that.
Yeah.
Is that something you think about?
Sorry?
Is that like something you think about when you like see him? You're like, hey, like just imagine the number of mitochondria that guy has.
Well, sometimes. But there's another dude, right, who works for the Park Service, who lives in Grand Canyon. He did the hike. He did the whole 600 miles in 24 days. This dude was doing 30 miles a day. He's vegan. He's this tiny little skinny dude. Oh, it's crazy. Amazing athletes. All right, so mitochondria then have got their own DNA, and that's really interesting, right? Most of the cell's DNA is in the nucleus. Mitochondria have their own DNA.
Is it a different makeup than what's in the
It's identical in makeup. It's still a nucleic acid. It's still DNA. It's in terms of adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, the sugar and the phosphate, exactly the same as your nuclear DNA. But it's present as a circular chromosome. All right? It's not wrapped into chromosomes like the DNA is there. Okay? It's actually very reminiscent of bacterial DNA. Okay? And they have their own ribosomes. They can make their own proteins. There's some autonomy. They decide what they want to make. They decide when they want to reproduce. In fact, it's almost like, especially when you have a look at their makeup and when you have a look at their DNA, they're a little bit like a little bacterium living in a eukaryotic cell, living in a bigger cell. All right? And when we've looked at their evolutionary origins, we believe that they got there by a process called endosymbiosis. So if you go back billions of years, when there were just prokaryotes, one big prokaryote engulfed a smaller prokaryote. That smaller prokaryote lived within the big prokaryotic cell. And the big prokaryotic cell gave it food. And in return, it leached out some ATP. And then over a lot of evolutionary time, those mitochondria became a part of the cell. And that's how we believe we got mitochondria in eukaryotic cells.
What's that process called?
It's called endosymbiosis. Endosymbiosis. Okay. Your book elaborates on endosymbiosis a lot. I'm just going to touch on it that much. Okay. All right. One last thing I want to say before we move on to that is that you inherit your mitochondria from your mother, not your father. The only thing you get from your father is half your DNA. Well, there's actually a tiny little bit of other stuff that sneaks in there, but all of your mitochondria you get from your mother. And your mum got them from who?
Her mom.
Her mum, your grandmother. And we've actually traced mitochondrial lineages back because they've got DNA. We can sequence the DNA. And there is a mitochondrial Eve, a woman that lived about 20,000 years ago, which we believe is you are her mitochondrial descendants. How cool is that? She's dubbed Mitochondrial Eve. I don't want to have any biblical references, all right? Okay. All right. So here's diagram. You can see in the eukaryotic cell, there's a mitochondria, and there's a transmission electron micrograph of it, and you can see all the different parts. Yep, outer membrane, inner membrane, intermembrane space, mitochondrial matrix, the cristae. Good? All right. Just want to show you this, help sort of visualize it. It's a three-dimensional structure. So this is done with computer imaging as a result of different kinds of microscopy. All right. Okay, is everybody good with the mitochondria? All right. So now we're going to look at chloroplasts. Now, chloroplasts are not found in animal cells, are they? Think about chloroplasts then as organelles involved in the capture of light energy. Chloroplasts capture light energy. And they're the sites of photosynthesis. It's where photosynthesis occurs inside eukaryotic cells. So what I want you to do now is write down the general chemical equation for photosynthesis. Drag it up from the depths of your memory. Don't look at your wives. What is it? Anyone?
It's the opposite of cellular respiration.
The opposite?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what that looked like. CO2 plus
Wait, plus water. It's water, sorry, I wrote down water just to be
or water even. And the products are
glucose and oxygen.
glucose and oxygen. Balance it. Okay. All right. What do we need for photosynthesis to occur? Light energy. All right. So let's add some light. So here's what's going on. Carbon dioxide and water, very low energy molecules. There's very little energy stored in those molecules. Glucose is a high energy molecule. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, at least in chemical reactions. So the energy in light is captured by the plant and converted into chemical energy in glucose. So we're converting light energy into chemical energy. Light energy from sunlight converted into chemical energy stored in glucose. Good? What else do we need for that to occur? It's one other thing. We do need light and we need, not heat, chlorophyll. Okay, chlorophyll. So chloroplasts are the sites of photosynthesis, and they contain chlorophyll, all right, which is the green pigment, and there's a bunch of other photosynthetic molecules, but chlorophyll is the green pigment. Now, whenever I say that, guess what pops into my mind? Chlorophyll. What pops into your mind? Anybody seen the Adam Sandler movie? Chlorophyll? You mean borophyll? Seen that movie? No? I think it's Billy Madison, isn't it? Yeah. When he says that, I want to go and punch him in the face. I do. He totally ruined that lecture. I had a student once that brought the movie in, made me show it, that little segment. All right, so chloroplasts then are found in plants, green algae. Are they found in fungi? No. Now, you know that there are green bacteria, right? Do green bacteria have chloroplasts? No, they don't. They're found in plants and green algae. They're only found in eukaryotic cells. So I'm going to add some chloroplasts to this cell. I know this is sort of, we will focus on the animal cell, so this is a bit of a jumbled up cell, isn't it? But I'm going to add some chloroplasts.
When we draw this, do you want us to include the chloroplast in it?
Yeah, you can add it to yours, but just you might want to make a note, only found in plants and some algae. So this little picture here shows plant cells, and you can very clearly see the chloroplasts. Yeah?
I have a question. You said it's found in eukaryotic, the eukaryotic.
It's only found in eukaryotic cells,
But
yeah?
not, it wouldn't be in like Animalia, right? Because we obviously it doesn't include photosynthesis, so it's a selective.
It's found in plants and some protists, not animals and not fungi and not some protists. If the protist isn't green, it's not found in protists. Now, there are some animals that are able to capture algal cells, and I think even the chloroplasts of the algal cells, and kind of put them in their own cells and hijack them a little bit, but they don't inherit those chloroplasts. Okay. So on this left diagram then, we've got chloroplasts in plant cells, and over here we've got chloroplasts in protist cells. Anybody remember the name of this protist? Good, it's Spirogyra, yeah. If you Google Spirogyra, you'll find this and a jazz band. There's a jazz band called Spirogyra.
Is that like? Never mind.
All right, this picture I love. All right, so this is Spirogyra, and look at that. The chloroplast is red. Now, you might think it's using a fluorescent dye, right, to tag the chloroplast, but that's not the way it works. Chlorophyll, if you shine ultraviolet light on chlorophyll, it absorbs the ultraviolet light, which you can't see, and emits visible light in the red spectrum. In fact, we're going to do a lab, we're going to extract chlorophyll, all right? We're going to separate the different photosynthetic molecules on a piece of filter paper. You're going to shine an ultraviolet light on it, and you're going to see it turn from green in the light to red in the dark. It's kind of cool. All right. So if we were to have a look inside a chloroplast, they're quite complicated structures. There's an awful lot of compartmentalization inside a chloroplast. Okay. So on the left, you've got that little diagram, and on the right, you've got a transmission electron micrograph, and you can see all of these different compartments inside the chloroplast. Now, I'm giving you this for completeness, all right? I'm not going to examine you. It'd be nice if you remembered it. I'm not going to examine you on the details of all these names inside the chloroplast, all right? I think that's maybe a little more detail than for this class, all right? But what I do want you to see is that there are inner and outer membranes, all right? So there's separation there, and then you've got these structures, okay, which are called thylakoids. They are stacked, and they form the granum, and then the space outside the thylakoids, but inside the inner membrane, is called the stroma. Okay? All right. Now, chloroplasts, like mitochondria, have got their own DNA, and they've got their own ribosomes. And they're free, the DNA and ribosomes are free in the stroma, and they're able to make their own proteins. They're able to autonomously reproduce. Chloroplasts are able to divide into two, and you get two chloroplasts. So a plant cell is kind of as dynamic as an animal cell in respect that it can change to its environment to meet the needs. Now, chloroplasts, we believe, made their way, or their origins, in eukaryotic cells is, again, by this sort of idea of endosymbiosis. But in this case, a large cell captured a smaller photosynthetic bacteria. That photosynthetic bacteria then lived within the bigger cell, and over evolutionary time, now they're reliant on the bigger cell. Okay? And these resemble, in many ways, photosynthetic bacteria, cyanobacteria. Okay, everybody okay with the chloroplasts? Yeah, all right. So now we're going to move on to the cytoskeleton, next component of the cell, cytoskeleton. Now this fascinates me. All the components of the cell fascinate me, but the cytoskeleton I think more than anything else. So the cytoskeleton then is this network of fibers that extends throughout the cytoplasm of the cell. And they're not membrane. So I'm going to draw them in black, and I'm only going to add a little bit of them to our cell diagram, all right, because they extend throughout. I'll show you pictures of them, what they really look like.
You said it's not membrane.
Not membrane, nope, I'm drawing them in black. Different parts of them, different parts of the cytoskeleton are made up of different components.